welcome to Winterberg in Germany, where it is living up to its name. It is a winter wonderland after a week of snow. The season is just about to open here for skiing, and it is well underway in the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup. This is the fourth stop on the Men's Skeleton World Cup Tour, the first of two heats here in Winterberg, although heat is something that's in short supply. It's -5 out, and there's a stiff following breeze. Makes it feel more like, I don't know, -9, -10. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Melissa Hollingsworth from Canada, who slid this track this morning in the women's race. Mel, it's a demanding track in any conditions.
It is. Luckily, we have a clear day. We're seeing some blue sky. The track really is quite simple to get down, but it's really tough to get a fast time. So obviously the start is critical, and the rest of the way down, you're just really wanting to steer in those main points in the corner, and then you're a shock absorber from there on. There's long, smooth corners. When you watch the race, you watch sliders go down, you're not going to see big differences, big lines between them. You'll be able to make out little mistakes if they hit the wall here and there, but you're going to have a hard time spotting those fast lines. Has a Kreisel. It's a 270-degree corner. There's some oscillations in there. You want to make sure you come out nice and smooth into corner 8. Corner 9 is one of the most unique corners in the world because there is another corner on the end of it, 10 right here, where you can go up onto the wood and get spit out. But we didn't have any problems with it here this morning. This is the fastest part of the track right here, where the men should be approaching speeds of close to 130 kilometers an hour.
And uphill through the final corner to the finish line, which is right on the exit of the corner, so even if you hit the wall normally, you're across the line. And Alexander Tretikov, the Russian rocket, has not only the start record but the all-time record here on this track. He starts third in the he lies third rather in the World Cup rankings, behind the Dukurs brothers of Latvia. Martins with a good run to start the season, but not undefeated. Last time out in Whistler in Canada, victory went to Frank Rommel, the first time in 2 calendar years that anybody has beaten Martins Dukurs in any form of racing. And Dukurs could be on the verge of a big milestone in his career here. He's had 19 World Cup wins. He's looking for number 20. There he is, warming up at the top of the track. Well, the ice reflects the air temperature, Mel. It was sunny on Wednesday. It snowed every other day. Today, it's bitter out, and the track must feel slightly different.
It does, but I know every one of these athletes is very excited because the snow is not flying. So really, yes, the temperature of the ice might be a little bit colder, a little bit harder, but it's going to be a fair race today.
Faceman Eric Nielsen of Canada starts off the draw. There are 29 sleds, which means nearly a full third of the field is going to be cut. This is going to be pretty brutal. Anybody who has a drama at the start is going to be really in the danger zone. And from maybe Ben Sanford, Carl Tress, Ed Smith on down, if you're below the top 15 starters, then you're in a real knife fight. Anybody starting outside the top 20 is going to have to bump somebody just to get into the second heat. So it could be hold on to your hats. Track is clear at Winterberg in Germany for Eric Nielsen of Canada. Now, he was beating up women's race winner Shelley Rudman. He said, come on, give us a break. You just went faster than half the men in the field in your race. Now let's see what speed we've got in the men's race here in Winterberg.
Eric's going to set the pace. And going through corner 0, we call this 0 because it was an additional corner added to the track just a few years back. It's really tricky. He handled it great with the 5:05 start.
You've got to get a big steer on from the grooves to survive that corner, otherwise you're in trouble. Coming uphill here, over a little crest, and then dropping back down again.
This upper portion of the track is very slow. It feels slow to the athlete. You have to remember to not get ahead of yourself and start anticipating any of the pressures of the corners. You have to be a shock absorber. Eric is having a great run so far. It's really smooth. He's a heavy slider, so as the speed picks up, as long as he's had fine lines all the way through the upper portion, this should be a pretty fast time for him.
Over 60 miles an hour now, and accelerating hard, 78 miles an hour into the finish corner. The line is there. You can see the hole in the wall. 57.18 slide for him. Okay, 126 down at the bottom is pretty decent speed. We'll have to see what everybody else does. I mean, Mel, you've been in the position yourself a number of times where you're the first on the ice and you're the crash test dummy. Everybody learns a little from your experiences.
Yeah, and Eric, he chose to use the right group. So the forerunners must have given him a good enough read. You can see he's steering so hard because it's obviously spitting him off to the left. You do not want to hit the wall there. I think Eric's going to be happy. A 57.18, yes, it's faster training, faster conditions, but the track record's at 56.88. He's not far off.
No, absolutely right. Next up is another electrifying starter from the USA, John Daly. Very, very quick out of the blocks, 27-year-old from Smithstown, New York. Studied at State University of Plattsburgh, close to the Lake Placid track. And just look at those Billy Whiz legs. My word, what speed he's got.
5:04. Great corner zero for him, too. Very smooth. He was not in the banana-like form that we saw the Canadian Eric Nielsen in. So John Daly just needs to relax and trust his instincts as he's going down this very, I would say, non-difficult Winterberg track.
Well, a little less momentum. You know, you talked about Eric's height and weight. John Daly gives away 6-8 inches maybe, and, you know, commensurate amount of weight. So it takes a while, even though he's quick across the ice, for that momentum to come. And now it's starting to come a little.
It is, but that looked like it was a little bit of a late entry into 8, but he handled it well. I thought it was going to push his height in corner 8 and have some problems on the entrance of 9.
Well, he's not got the speed of Nielsen anywhere so far. 1:26.1 down the bottom for Eric in the finish corner. John's a third of a second away. Better speed at the bottom, might pull back maybe as much as a tenth of that. Yeah, he stops the bleeding and shortens the gap. 57.49 slide. He's a third of a second away from Eric Nielsen. Well, now, this is another thing, you know, it's so icy, you're coming straight by the finish area. You know, some of the women are going right, you can see the tracks right up the top there.
Down on this lower portion, you can see that he's just trying to stay as quiet as possible. He had great speed going into the finish corner here. It's a little bit difficult. Sometimes we'll have a bit of a flip on the exit, but he handled that really, really well.
Well, that's all key to keeping that speed at the bottom to the line, but Zach Lund there offering a little bit of advice. Politsina and Yelena Nikitina there in the Russian hats. There she is. A sensational World Cup debut. She was 10th. And, of course, they're all cheering on Russia's skeleton hero, really, Alexander Tretyakov, one of the fastest starting men that the sport has ever seen.
He is so fast that he can barely feel the crest there. Watch the groove run out very quickly. He has sometimes some big issues going into corner 0. That definitely will hurt his velocity, all that speed that he created off the start block. But when you cut ice like that, it's going to be a catch-up game from here.
Well, he starts 486, few hundreds quicker than Eric Nielsen, getting on for a tenth of a second, and the gap is opening up. Of course, he's got such velocity early on, and he is a tall guy as well. He looks slender, but he is tall.
That'll help with his weight a little bit. When you're tall and you're lean, you're aerodynamic, and you can have some weight. That's the perfect type of body type for this sport.
Easing away now from Nielsen. The speeds are good as well. 2 kilometers an hour quicker, 1 and a bit anyway, certainly, than Eric Nielsen, the current leader.
And his coach, Willie Schneider, this used to be his home track. He used to have the track record a long time ago, so just all that more knowledge will help him.
We'll say not that long ago. 56.49, new track record. Well, now is lightning going to strike twice. Third off in the women's race, Anya Huber broke the track record. Fourth off in the women's race, Shelley Rudman crushed it into obliteration. Next up, we've got Frank Rommel, our winner last time out in Whistler. I wonder. Let's just see. Alexander looking pretty happy with that. Got a lot more Rasputin beard going on.
Great form with him. Didn't see too many mistakes. We had the highest speeds by almost 2 kilometers an hour. We'll have to see what the hometown hero of Frank Rommel, what he'll be able to produce next.
Billy Schneider liking that as Alexander Tretyakov leads the race. Well, Rommel next up, the only man to have beaten Martin Dukurs in 2 years of sliding in any competition. Winner last time out in Whistler. Now, that's a very different kettle of fish to this 1,300-meter Winterberg track, but he's a German in Germany. He will know it well. Won here before. He was on the podium here a couple of years ago in 3rd when he got disqualified. Let's hope that lightning doesn't strike twice. I think he's had quite enough of that.
5:14 for Frank. You could see that he actually took his sled a little bit to the left going into corner 0, which was interesting because the groove pulled so much left. But he has phenomenal control on his sled that it doesn't seem to really matter what kind of line he's on. He's able to manage it.
Okay, 2800s behind at the start, 4200s back now. He has got to be absolutely sensational from the Kreisel on down. He's half a second behind Tretyakov. It seems an unmanageable margin.
It does seem like that, but this is Frank Rommel, and sometimes all of a sudden the jets do come out.
Well, he needs the afterburners lit now as he gets out of corner 9 and 10 because, boy, he's got some ground to make up and no ice in which to do it. He's not getting there. 1:29.1, it's half a kilometre an hour quicker. It'll bring the margin down to, well, I was going to say 4/10, barely under 5/10 of a second. Wow. Well, 56.96, that's a pretty decent slide. Again, it's like Shelley Rudman's run in the women's race. You've got to take that out of the pot. Everybody else looks very competitive, and then you just get being one big slide that makes everybody else feel a little like they're underperforming.
That's for sure. You can see Frank, he's going to come out of the groove. It's naturally pulling him to the left, the athlete left, and he decided to go that way a little bit, but he handled that really well. Sometimes you'll hit the ice there, hit the wall. There's his wife, Julia. She used to slide skeleton for Germany as well, so it's great that she can come
to
over and cheer
her last year, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, in St. Moritz at the World Cup. He proposed to her.
Thomas Dukurs of Latvia next up lies second in our World Cup rankings. Best result, second place in Lake Placid so far this season. Okay, oh, a bit of a kind of odd loping stride there. Didn't seem to have the power we come to expect from him. 5 flat though, that's not shoddy.
Yeah, he looked like he was really far away from his sled. It must just had a slight misstep off the block, and sometimes that's hard to pull yourself back in when you only have so many steps as you're pushing your sled.
The other thing, of course, is you don't want to pull yourself sideways in any way. You want to be driving forward and narrow the gap as you get to the sled in the end.
Exactly. All the power needs to be going forward. Anytime you're leaning on that groove, you could possibly be pushing out.
1800s behind, and from a 1400 slower start, this is a really good run. 2300s back, 97.3. That's not as quick as Tretyakov, though. He needs to be comfortably 129s at the bottom, and he's not. Slower than Tretyakov, so he'll drop behind as well into second place. 56.91, 500ths of a second in front of Frank Rommel. Again, you know, it's over so fast, isn't it? Less than a minute of action to decide your fate in the first heat. It's remarkably small amount of time you guys actually spend on the ice.
But there are so many thoughts going through your brain, that's for sure. Let's have a look, see what we can see what mistake happened here. He got pretty far away from his sled, kind of on an angle, and you can see he's sort of pushing that sled a little bit to the left, and it's pretty bumpy. It's a big risk of having that much pressure on the groove. You could pop out.
Just for a moment, it looked like he was limping almost. I wonder if he's A-OK. We'll find out for Heat 2. Next up, though, is brother Martin Dukurs. 19 career World Cup wins, most of which have come in the last 2 seasons, you have to say. And he is our World Cup points leader.
Martins is battling a torn ACL, but that has not slowed his starts down whatsoever.
Wow, 488, just 200s away from Tretyakov. The battle is on for the lead of this race.
Wow, already 500s under, and he's so quiet on his sled. We saw Tretyakov make little tiny mistakes, just too early into corners and slight bumps, but not seeing that from Martins today, which we always expect this type of form from him.
So far this season, he's won by a few tenths rather than a second and change, but is there something different about him this year, do you sense, or are they just trying new technology?
Well, Martins has had a different life. He's got a baby girl now, and his whole life isn't just skeleton anymore. Family is a big part of it. Another track record.
Oh my goodness! goodness. 56.35 slide from Martins Dukurs. Well, it wasn't sled 3 and sled 4 like in a women's race. It was sled 3 and sled 5 that broke the track record here. And again, the track record this morning was 56.88. It's now 56.35. Same as Shelley Rudman, half a second off the track record. Wow.
So impressive. Everything Martins does, he's just absolutely perfect with the skeleton sled. His starts, his form, how he actually initiates his steers, everything is always great timing.
You know, he has every right to be really hard work to get to grips with as a person, and he could not be nicer and easier to deal with. Great speed as well, but still down at the bottom. Rommel finding that pace, 129 kilometers an hour, but, wow, Martins Dukurs might have stumbled in Whistler, but he didn't fall. Next up, Canada's John Fairbairn, second of our 3 Canadian athletes. Start draw number 7. Well, all sorts of different styles at the start, rocking the body, rocking the sled. Everybody has their own way of breaking that inertia. Ooh, a little bump there.
Yes, it's pulling him quite a bit, but a 5.13. John's been sliding very well during training despite the weather conditions. He has the most aggressive sled up that he has ever slid on. He's on a safe sled. He can actually set his sled up for different styles of tracks, and so I really hope he was able to get enough practice on the way that it's set up for this clean, harder ice.
Well, after that remarkable track record destruction of Martins Dukurs, everybody else is going to be looking like they're a long way off the pace.
And a little bit of a bump off of the entrance of corner 9, and that won't show up in this next split, but it will before corner 14.
Speed down the bottom, he'll be lucky to be in the 127s, 126.2. That's getting on for 3 kilometers now, slower than the fastest sled, 57.73. Well, he's 7th at the moment, and that may be good enough to keep him in the top 10. But Melissa, you know, there's 30 sliders here, 20 of whom at least are top 10 potential, 10 of whom are top 3 potential. This is not fooling around.
No, not at all. And you can see John Fairbairn, his head is bumping up and down in corner 14. There's a lot of pressure in that corner, and it's fairly rough. And so you're just trying to be that shock absorber. That's a classic little flip out of the exit corner. It doesn't hurt your time at all, but it can hurt your runners. You do not want to scratch those up for the second run.
Well, I was talking to Sarah Reed earlier on, your teammate in Shell. I was saying, you know, what about the track? How much different is it? And she was saying exactly that. It's choppy, it's chattery in the cold. Well, next up is Matt Antoine of the USA, one of the taller athletes on tour. And again, you know, there's either the short squat sprinter or the long, lean, aerodynamic physique. Pretty much anything still seems to work, doesn't it, in skeleton? It's all between the ears that makes the difference.
Oh, it is a mental sport, that's for sure. And for Matt, he's been struggling a little bit with his start time of 5:15. We're used to seeing it lower, but he did have a knee surgery this last summer, and you have to make choices like that because you want to be at your best in Sochi, which is just over a year away.
Yeah. It's, I mean, now, particularly these 2 seasons, it's all big plan, and the focus is Sochi. It's not this week, it's not next week. The World Championships, be nice to peak then and to get an idea of your form when you're at your best. 92.2 kilometers now, translating to 57.3 miles an hour. At the moment, 7th place.
Everything's looking really smooth, but that's the tricky thing about this track in Winterberg. You're not going to see big mistakes, explosions, hits off the wall whatsoever. It's just going to be that slider who's able to initiate the steer and the impeccable timing.
We're looking at tiny differences between the athletes. 57.56 slide for him, and that leaves him 700s behind teammate John Daly. And we bandy that around as if that's a big margin. We're talking 700ths of a second. It's ridiculously tight. And the body language told you what he felt about it. Not a lot to see, but clearly a lot to feel from his point of view.
Fastest point of the track there. You need to have those high speeds approaching 130 kilometers an hour.
Well, Next up on the ice is Kristen Bromley in his 17th season as a Team Great Britain slider. His two teammates are World Cup rookies. Kristen's partner, Shelley Rudman, won earlier on. I said, did you have the same thing for breakfast? He said, what, Cheerios? 5:14 getaway from him.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he is motivated. It feels like he was empowered by Shelley's win earlier this morning. And that's what they're doing with the Bromley, the sled technology, building sleds and runners. They're trying to find exactly what is fast for Sochi. So Shelley obviously was struggling in the first half of our season, but now that Richard's able to be here in Winterberg, help her with her sled setup and get her back on that World Cup overall fine form. And Kristen here, we'll have to see where he'll lie in the field.
Well, at the moment, he's moved from 7th at the start up into 4th position. Always has quite a wild, ragged-looking sliding style, and that's just the way that he gets the speed out of the sled. 127.9, 79.5 miles an hour. Long skid off the finish corner, but 3rd place, there is Richard Bromley. Grey coming in that beard. Maybe somebody ought to mention, regain for men. Oh, no, that's not the colouring one, is it? Again, straight out of the end.
We're always seeing feet moving from Kristen, and obviously, however his sled set up, he's the only one that we've seen have that slight little flip out of the end of 9 into 10. That's that funny corner, having a little bit of height. And sometimes you can get up on this roof, which you do not want to do that because then your runners are absolutely toast.
Well, I know, speaking to Shelley after the race, that they were essentially using North America to test various different setups, and she said so many people back home and in the Federation were going, you all right? Are you okay? Are you fine? So today she went out to try and win the race, rather than to try and answer questions about the sled. I think Kristen is still definitely in testing mode. Well, next up is Germany's Alexander Krökel, 2011 Junior World Champion. First World Cup podium of his career came in Park City, where he took the silver medal. Now, can he get in amongst the medals here in Germany? A lot of support. You can see Marion Thies there banging on the hoarding at the top.
Oh, and that group is pulling so far to the left for these athletes, and that's just panic. The last thing you want to do is have a big movement on your sled and skid your sled out from underneath of you, and then that's it. Race is over.
I watched it doing that all the way through Heat 1 of the women's race. I thought they'll spot that and correct it. They didn't, and they didn't over lunchtime as well. That right groove still is pulling you hard to your left. 4800's back. He was 6th quickest at the start, 5th now as he gets to the Kreisel. Can he get a good exit? He does. Brushes by the wall rather than touching. This should put him up into 4th place. Not quite yet.
He's having a really smooth run. Let's see how this lower labyrinth, he can make sure that he's smooth through the middle of these corners, not falling off and skidding like we've seen some previous athletes.
Head chattering on the ice through the final corner. 4th place at the line, 56.89. So he's 600ths behind Kristen Bromley. Good battle already there on the fringes of the medals. And Alexander Krökel, 600ths behind Kristen Bromley, who lies 3rd, behind Alexander Tretyakov and race leader Martin Dukurs. Interesting, again, we talked about the first couple of steps, the way he holds it with both hands for safety.
Yes, and power, too. And he's a tall athlete. You look at some of the shorter athletes, it looks like they're almost running upright when they're bent over pushing and have that little bit of an advantage. It's really difficult when you're tall with those long limbs.
Well, Krökel is in 4th, but it is Martin Dukurs who leads 10 of our 29 sliders down here at Winterberg.
Bahnrekordzeit und auch der zweitplatzierte Alexander Tretyakov aus Russland hat den alten Bahnrekord noch unterboten mit seiner Zeit von 56,49. Aber pulverisiert sind die Tretyakov-Bahnrekorde durch Martin Dukurs. Die ersten beiden sind das, dann kommt Kristen Bromley an 3. Stelle und dann kommt Alexander Krökel an 4. Stelle und dann kommt Thomas Dukurs an 5. Stelle und dann kommt Frank Rommel an 6. Stelle. Also das ist schon ein tolles Feld. Der ersten 6, die da beisammen sind, wenngleich natürlich die Zeitunterschiede, 6 Zehntel Rückstand vom 6. auf den 1. schon eine feine Länge für sich. Aber sie haben es erlebt, liebe Zuschauer. Die war in Winterberg hier an der Kappe. Sie hat ihre speziellen Punkte und vor allem, wenn solche Bildungsbedingungen herrschen wie heute, dann sind die Athleten auch dabei, das zu nutzen für absolute Bestleistungen und Bestzeiten. Und der, den wir Ihnen als nächsten Teilnehmer vorstellen können, der ist auch ein Mann, der für Bestzeiten gerade stehen kann. Das ist der Kanadier John Montgomery. Er wurde auf der Heimbahn in Brüssel im Jahr 2010 Olympiasieger. Nahm dann eine Zeit aus, also eine Time off, und ist zurück und will versuchen, an frühere starke Leistungen anzuknüpfen. Bisher haben die Rennen 12, zweimal und einmal 14 in dieser Weltcup-Saison. Das ist noch nicht mehr möglich, aber wer weiß, vielleicht ist er hier in Winterberg heute. John Montgomery aus Calgary. Einer der Profis hier in dieser Weltcup-Disziplin, Zirkus 33 Jahre alt. Jetzt also bereit sich als nächster zum Start. And the next number 11, John Montgomery. The track is clear.
Welcome back to Winterberg in Germany. Martin Haven, and alongside me, Melissa Hollingsworth of Canada as Olympic champion. John Montgomery is at the top of the track, 11th of our 29 starters in this first heat.
John has had a really tough time with figuring out what sled he should be on. This is his, oh no, and that's exactly what we've been worried about seeing coming out of that groove. It's pulling so far to the left. This sled, John maybe has 10 runs on this sled. His sled set up broken Lake Placid in Park City. He was on his old Olympic sled and now trying something different, and obviously he just does not have that feel. Coming out of the groove and it's pulling that way, putting the pressure into the sled, it didn't respond the way he wanted it to.
Well, we saw a number of start upsets in the women's race. Katie Uhlaender popped out of the grooves. She didn't make the second heat. Noelle Piker's pace ran into the wall in the bottleneck. She got a bronze medal. So it's not always deadly, but in John's case, he's already the 11th fastest slider out of 11, and he may struggle to make the second heat. 1:25.6. That's not bad speed at the bottom, actually. 58.58. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a bit of a long and nervous wait for him. He's going to have to wait at least another 10 sleds before he knows whether he's still going to be in the race or not.
Absolute frustration, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, again, in this right-hand groove as the athlete looks at it, and look, bing, it just pops you, pings you straight out, immediately hard left.
Man, and a hit like that, just, he's a second behind the guy in front of him.
Coach Doug Gibson about as disappointed with that as Montgomery is. And of course, all of these, you know, just are a little alarm bells for everybody following. This is young Christopher Grother, Germany's rookie on the World Cup Tour this season. Second in the Junior Worlds at the end of last year. Former childhood ski jumper, so he's come to a much safer sport. Head first at 90 miles an hour on the ice at Whistler must seem like a big step up. 5.07 getaway.
And he chose to use the left groove. You can see he handled that great. He had great form. There was no bananaing. He didn't hit the wall. This is something that maybe the coaches need to have that communication with the athletes. Athletes need to take that time to go watch the forerunners so that they understand which line they're going to be given when they pick which groove.
Well, now, will you normally start in the left groove or in the right groove out of habit, just the way it suits your running style?
Yeah, every athlete is completely different. Some people like to run with the pressure of the runner over top of that groove. On the other hand, I'm the opposite. So today was the first time that I used the left groove for myself in about 6 years. It changes things a little bit. The sled height for you to actually push the sled, it can be quite challenging.
Well, 6th fastest at the start. He comes down into 4th position. Jens Muller, yeah, should be pretty happy with that. It was, actually, it was a Kristen Bromley slide, wasn't it? It wasn't tidy, but it had speed. He really did. 1:27.8 down at the bottom. That's pretty decent speed on that sled. And again, like Frank Rommel, had more speed at the bottom than he had ice left to exploit. So Christopher Grotehair moves into 4th place.
Going into the Kreisel turn.
Yeah, not too far away at all.
No.
3rd fastest there, 3rd fastest down at the bottom, 4th on the timesheets. And he is the top German. Grotehair 4th, Alex Krökel, who was a rookie last year, he's 5th. And the experienced Frank Rommel is in 7th place.
So all the athletes have to weigh after the first heat, and there is a maximum combined weight that you cannot exceed if you have any weight added to your sled. But they cannot discriminate against your body weight, so if you have a minimum weight sled and you're a big man like Faceman Eric Nielsen from Canada, then all the power to you.
Can be as big as you like. Talking about tall, Maurizio Ioli of Italy, he's tall as well, full 1m83, 6-footer. 172 pounds, 78 kilos of him, so not bulky, but long and lean.
You really don't want to be seeing what the athletes are doing. You want to see the slider be very calm, relaxed, but you can see he's moving around a little bit. His head is trying to pull himself off the walls. He saw his toes touching down those earlier corners. All those movements are going to be bleeding your speed.
Well, the ideal, as you say, is that you just kind of lie there and it all happens for you. Of course, that's what it looks like from the outside, not what it feels like from the inside, but
just picking those perfect points of steering. That's what it is, really, and making sure that you're staying off the wall, especially here in Winterberg.
it's the same art that makes a race car driver, makes it look like he's cornering on rails. If you get right into the turn, then you come right out of the turn. Didn't have great speed down the bottom, 126.5. Isn't much to write home about. 11th spot ahead of John Fairbairn and John Montgomery. So 2 Canadians already out of the top 10 and with a few more sleds to come.
You want to get as much explosive power off that block. Make sure you have ground contact all the time. You can see Maurizio, he's got a lot of heel kicking there. That's not ice contact. That's not going to translate to a fast start.
Well, when you look at these sprinters, I was just watching there how low his hand was, just at ankle bone height. Try that at home sometime. That bit of skeleton you can try at home. There are the Russian girls, ready to support their next athlete, Sergei Chudanov. 14th in the World Cup rankings at the moment. Hasn't had the greatest start to the season. He's got a lot more than he's been able to show so far, and that's part of it. Just look again at the speed of those legs. 5 dead. That is an absolutely astonishing turnover.
Yeah, that was a great start. He missed the Lake Placid World Cup, so he is just kind of climbing back with that deficit of 0 points in the first World Cup, and we've seen some moments of brilliance with him in Park City and Whistler of one run being fantastic, the other one kind of falling behind. So see some quiet form. Again, his coach, Willi Schneider, German, who used to own the track record here, and he has all that knowledge and helping them with their sled setups. We should see some fantastic results from these Russian guys.
Of course, for Sergei, you know, all of missing Lake Placid and his results so far, the inconsistency, it all smacks of an interrupted pre-season, doesn't it? You know, injury, a hamstring strain or something. I haven't talked to him actually to find out how fit he was, but that's certainly got all the indications of not having a great run into the start of the season. Good thing for us, of course, is the World Championships are at the end, or the good thing for him is the World Championships are at the end, and that'll be the big target for the year, I'm sure. A 5 dead start, same as Thomas Dukurs, and a couple of hundreds behind Martins Dukurs and Alexander Tretyakov. So again, empirically, one of the fastest starters. He's 8th. Martins Dukurs leads from Alexander Tretyakov, and Kristen Bromley breaking up the you've got to be fast starting to be fast finishing rule here.
Now, they were just sweeping. I can't tell if it is snowing from what we're seeing on the screen, but it seemed like there was quite a bit of snow up at the top that they were sweeping away.
Maybe it's starting to come in off the walls from the wind rather than the snow. There's no snow in the air, certainly as far as the eye can see. Well, we're getting to halfway in our field. This is the 15th of our 29 sliders, so the tipping point, the fulcrum, if you like, is Ben Sanford. Is he the mean or the median? He's the median, isn't he? That's the one in the middle, not the average of. And he's not the average of anything, is he? He's the extremes here, the extremes of height for the Kiwi. 6'6" plus, I always say, about another 3 or 4 inches of hair, although he has had a trim recently. Recovering from a back injury in Park City. He's used to be recovering a lot quicker than I am, that's for sure, but then he's an athlete and I just sit down for a living. 5:27 getaway.
Yeah, and actually our physio, Tyson, was the one who tended to him when he went down, and he could not even move. That's how bad his lower back was injured in Park City. It was actually quite scary. Catherine, his one teammate, who's a women's skeleton competitor, is a physio, so she's been able to work on him and get him back, mended back into the shape so he can be back on the World Cup circuit.
He's had a good run this morning, and Ben at the moment started 15th, he's up to 12th. He's got to run out of ice really before his body shape and his form get him to maximum velocity. For him, the mouth-watering prospect of a World Championships in St. Moritz must be just dangling there. 9th at the moment, could get up into the top 6, maybe 8th place. 57.07 is a very good run on such a short track for Ben Sanford.
Yes, with having a 5:27 start, that was fantastic, definitely. Winterberg is known as a bit of a heavy man's track as well, so, but you can see his form. I noticed he was really picking up his shoulders and his head a little bit. See right there, he's trying to rip the sled off, and just think of all that air that's going underneath of his shoulders. Aerodynamics is important, even if you are a heavy guy, so hopefully you can fix that second round.
Like I said, 6 hits, and that doesn't count the hair. I was thinking, he does look like thing 1 or thing 2, doesn't he? Definitely got a Dr. Zeus look going on there. Kyle Tress next up for the USA. Don't forget, 16th of our sliders. 29 start, only the fastest 20 go through into Heat 2, so pressure is on.
.508. He has an interesting starting style. You saw him with 2 hands on that sled, 2 feet on the block, and then trying to use as much explosive power as possible before getting into that technical bit. Kyle's only had 8 runs on this sled. This is a new Willie Schneider sled, taking a big risk coming over to Europe, but there are the only 2 races before Christmas, so felt like he needed to change something up, and in training he was flying. So let's see where it puts him here in this clear, cold day in Winterberg.
All right, so new kit, and again, plenty of races left before we get to the World Championships. And of course, uniquely this year, after the Worlds, we're then going to Sochi for the final World Cup race of the year. As far as I'm aware, that's never happened before. It's not a bad run. No. 9th fastest. Now down to 11th. Well, I mean, Mel, the challenges with a new sled, you know, when you get into a higher car and all the controls are in a different place, you know, that takes you a day or 2 to remember that not to wipe the windshield when you're trying to put the turn signals on. A sled must be a lot more complex than that to get to grips with.
It sure is, and even pushing it, the saddle is going to be completely different. That hand placement's going to be different. Things that should just be muscle memory and reacting to it, you're going to be thinking about it. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but that's the growing pains when you have new equipment.
Re-education is what it's all about, and as you say, 2 weekends here and next weekend in La Plagne before everybody bugs out and heads home for Christmas for almost 10 days. Early start to the new year. Next up, Ed Smith, head first Ed from Great Britain. 17th start draw for him. One of 2 rookies in the Team GB skeleton squad this season. And Ed again, very quick starter. 26 years old now from Bristol in the West Country. 5:06 getaway.
Corner 0 kind of took him a little bit high on the exit. You can see it pushed him into that right-hand wall, and he was sort of leaning away. That's all work that you don't want to be doing. Any kind of pressure you have in the sled is going to be a little bit of friction, especially on that flat portion. You want to be able to do a steer, be done with it, be a shock absorber on your sled.
Currently running 8th, 9th position. 92.4 kilometers an hour. The speed's close to where he needs to be. He needs a couple of good exits. The Kreisel and down out of corner 9 and 10 would really help him. Let's see how he goes. Top 10 at the moment. Now, as a European slider, this will be one of the tracks that he'll have seen more often than North America. 1:26.0. Not great speeds down the track, and not really any major mistakes to show why there might not be, but 57.33, he'll be reasonably okay with that, as coach Andy Schmidt was.
There's quite a few of them all packed in there together. It is a really tight race from about third on.
This is something we so often see in Winterberg, is lots of sleds jammed together. So a chance if you can tidy up even one exit that you could make up 2 or 3 places maybe. Well, Russians have seen their men at the top, so meandering down to find somewhere warm, I imagine, to watch the rest of the race. Hiro Takahashi now with coach Katsuhiro Koshi at the top. Chatted to him on Wednesday. We were basking in the sunshine. Chatted to him yesterday. He was saying, "Where's the sun? I'm frozen." Really bitter. This morning, no warmer either. This afternoon now. Hiro, 28 years old, from Miyagi in the northern island of Japan. 5:11 getaway. And both he and his teammate Shinsuke Toyama, regulars in the top 15 last season, haven't quite managed to get to that form yet this year.
I think they'll be really excited for the next stop because they were top 10s, I think, along last year. So just working on their feel and a little finesse here in Winterberg before they get to the speed.
12th fastest at the start. He's picked up 11th place now. Speeds are pretty decent as well, 92.1, not too bad.
He's looking very quiet on his sled. That's the tough thing when you're watching this track. He was a little bit high on the exit of corner 9 there, where it pushed him off early into 10. This is the part where the track really speeds up, and you can see that with the chattering. The athletes' helmets are rocketing off the ice.
He's not finding the speed he needs at the bottom. Slipped away from 11th place at the midpoint, down to 14th. That should just about be enough to keep him in the race. But there's no guarantees, even at 14th, not with 9 sliders starting outside the top 20. Okay, we've got some who are only occasional World Cup racers, but you don't have to be a regular World Cup racer to have one good run here and knock somebody out. Chrome dome of Matthias Guggenberger next up. Still struggling to recover from pre-season back injury, the Austrian. Injured his back, shutting the car door. Turned to close the door. Ah! Again, good, quick-looking legs. See what he's got at the start, 5.17.
Yeah, we're used to seeing him much faster than that, but when you're injured, you're spending all your time just rehabbing, not able to work on that power and speed in the gym. And so having some troubles here in the upper portion of the track. We're not used to seeing that. Everyone's had smooth lines, but he actually created some waves in corner 2 there and dropped out.
Also steering a lot with his hips in the slow corners. You can really see the legs out to one side or the other.
That's the thing with injuries, that it's going to hurt his actual push times and his starting technique, but if you're not comfortable in your body because you're wearing pain, you're not going to be comfortable on the sled, and we are not seeing Matthias in a very comfortable sliding style right now.
No, this is not going to get him into the second heat. I'm afraid that Matthias is going to be watching the second heat from the sidelines. He's a long way short on speed. Well, 18th, just a whisker ahead of John Montgomery. Well, not a whisker, 1 position ahead of John Montgomery, 1.6 seconds ahead of John Montgomery. 0.6 per second, rather. That was not a good run.
No, you can see he's trying to come out of the corner there, but there's about another 20 feet of corner. Actually drops out. You can't be making those types of mistakes here in Winterberg. There's just not enough speed to play with. And again, comes out of the corner too soon. Lifted, drops out.
Well, again, you know, we talked about timing being everything here, and the timings were just a beat off there, and that really hurt him. Next up is our second Austrian slider, Raphael Meyer. Comes from an ice sliding family. His brother slides skeleton, his younger brother, and his dad, coaches the Austrian bobsleigh team and was a bobsledder himself, so it's like being the son of a baker, isn't it? Mr. Bun the baker, Mr. Ice the bobsledder, I suppose, would be the family favourites card. Again, still really very young, 19 years old. He's really going to develop as an athlete as well as a slider. You know, the physical performance is going to change with his body over the next couple of years.
Yes, well, on average, every track, a tenth at the top of the track from your start will be about 2 to 3 tenths at the bottom automatically. So when you're starting with that type of a deficit, you have to drive your way down, all the way down the track. You have to be perfect.
You know, these two Austrian sliders brought up with the sport at Eagles, which is the definitive gliders track where silence on the sled is absolutely above all else. So they should respond well to this track. It should play to their strengths, but again, 19th at the start, he's 17th at the moment. He's driving himself into the race. Is he going to be 17 still at the line? 1:26.8, that's better speed than we've seen from a few. Yes, he is. 1:26.8 speed, just enough to carry him through into 17th place. But again, no guarantees that that will be good enough for a second heat. He's our 20th slider. The race is now full, and there are 9 men queuing up to start evicting people who've already got a seat at the party. So nobody is safe who's 15th or down. Just a fraction late on the exit, fell a little heavily into the track, not as smooth. And you know, we're seeing it in slow-mo, it takes maybe a second to happen. In real speed, it takes maybe a tenth, 2 tenths of a second to happen. Slider 21, like everybody who follows him, Dave Swift now has to go fast or go home. He was talking to his dad and mum yesterday. His girlfriend's at a track for the first time ever as well, so got a nice bit of family support. You'll probably see them with the Union flag a little later. Again, Swifty, very explosive starter. And after North America, now on tracks where he will have grown up learning this sport, which almost cursed him into a corner zero mistake. 496, and he's still steering hard.
All that speed that he gained at the top of the track, a 496, will have been lost right there in corner zero.
3rd at the start,
yeah.
16th at the second speed trap. Wow, that hurt. And now he's got to somehow try and keep his calm and his cool. He's dropped to 20th place.
That's something that's really unique about the sport of skeleton, is that you have to get all fired up at the top and strong, powerful, and then as soon as you get on your sled, you have to be calm. It's an instant switch, and if you're not making that switch instantly, that's what happens.
Still in 20th place at the moment. John Montgomery is out of the race. You can hear his chin on the ice as he comes across the line. 58.18, he is in. Montgomery is out. The Olympic champion will not get a second heat. I fear that Dave Swift will not get a second heat either, I'm afraid. There's too many sliders left to come. Still 8 athletes.
Look at his power here, tracking beside the sled. Zero, all of his momentum is going forward. That's why we see such a fast start.
You want to know what his dad does? His dad, for the last 20 years, has been a sprint training coach. Shame he wasn't a corner zero coach. That skid cost him, and then it got into a tank slapper into the wall as well. That added insult to injury.
Yeah, he lifted his legs off and he was sticking them to the side. He de-weighted the back of the sled, and that's where the actual control is with the knife of the groove.
And next up, Ander Mirambel of Spain. And uniquely, the only person who does not play for Barcelona's Espanyol football club, who is licensed to wear their colours, as they are now an official sponsor. 5:21 start.
Starting 20th, so we'll have to see if he can make his way, keep his way in the top 20.
Well, he's kept his speed alive, and Ander had a good trip through North America. He was working hard with his coach, and just, you know, the progress was starting to come. He needs to keep that momentum, needs to walk away from here with 2 heats, a position in the top 20. And he is still in the 20 at the moment, but only in 20th place. This is going to be touch and go for everybody now. 19th place. He's now ahead of Dave Swift and Matthias Guggenberger. John Montgomery's already out. All three of them had start disasters. 19th at the line for Ander Mirambel, and that 57.76 was a good solid slide, and he might just have done enough to get himself a second heat. This is really tough though. A third of the field are going to be spectating in the second heat.
He had clean, smooth lines, but you know, Winterberg is a little bit tricky. If you come out of there like that and you don't get up on that other corner, maybe that's what costs another 1/10 of a second the next split. You can see it's nothing is devastating whatsoever, but it does leave you with questions.
Yeah, we are really splitting hairs here in trying to separate our athletes. Well, there is Ander. As proud a Catalan as you will find anywhere. Next up, Michael Hofer of Switzerland. And again, the further we get down out of the top 20, you know, it reflects their World Cup rankings, the harder it is likely to be to make it in. Made his World Cup debut in 2010 and luckily skated just across into the other groove. Now, how much of a save was that? That was nothing short of miraculous.
Wow, he got very lucky there, and that just goes to show that if you're moving around too much, pushing your sled, you can actually pop yourself out. He was lucky he was going in the other direction where the other groove caught him, so he didn't have a disaster.
But normally by that stage, the runners are sideways. They just go straight across it there. They dropped into the train tracks, and it's straightened him up down to the first corner.
Now, that might be passing through his mind right now. Hopefully, he's staying very focused, calm, relaxed, so that he can handle this gentle track.
Well, he was 20th. He's now 19th. He is in the race, and Matthias Guggenberger is out. Picking up speed. What's he got down at the bottom? He's 18th, 127.2. That's very good speed. He did put it all behind him. He left it a long way behind. 18th place, 57.64. And you know what? That might just be enough to keep him in the race despite that start problem. So John Montgomery is out. Dave Swift is out. Matthias Guggenberger is out. And now on the bubble is Spain's Ander Mirambel in 20th, as Michael Hofer of Switzerland shakes his head, but he is in the race in 18th.
Let's see what happens here. He's tracking fine at this point. He's fairly close to his sled. It almost looks like he got off balance with his arm. He was running the same arm, same leg. Yeah. And when he loaded on his sled, it was like he dove forward, almost picked it up.
Yeah. The moment there's the weight transfer, he gets a little air under it, and of course, once it's flying, it's very hard to steer. Well, there is the remaining list of names, first of whom is Shinsuke Taiyama, 24th starter. He's the older of the two Japanese athletes, now 30, from Shizuoka in the South Island of Japan. 5'10", 185 pounds, 84 kilos. I wonder how many Japanese men look down on him. Not an awful lot in terms of height, I don't think. That classic shoulders down style that you see, good round-shouldered profile, keeps you out of the wind.
He was working quite hard to get around corner 0 there. You can see he was pulling his sled off the wall going into corner 1. And again, all that work, all that movement on your sled is going to be bleeding speed.
Steering corrections there as he gets the weight out, the legs sticking out into the airstream, just shifts the balance a little.
Yeah, the sleds are flexible, so we steer with pressure points with our shoulders and our knees. If you're trying to avoid hitting an entry when you're on a flat portion of the track where there's no pressure, then that's when you're going to move your head a little bit.
That's all started to unravel since the Kreisel. He was 13th, he's down to 16th. He had an uncomfortable exit off corner 9. He's down to 18th place. This to push Ander Mirambel out of the race. No, Mirambel is in. It's only 21st for Taiyama. Koshi-san can't believe it. It was looking so strong at the top part of the track. 14th start, he was 12th place, 13th place, and then it all unraveled.
Right here, too much height, dips down, the corner's not over, and so he is going right up, and he'll just drop out of the end of corner 9.
Well, that was really a slide of 2 parts. The first half was good, the second half just got away from him. And that's it. And that's how tough it is. 55 seconds, 56, 7 seconds, you're done for the day. That's it. Go away, come back next week somewhere else and try again. Giovanni Bolzano of Italy is next up. 27-year-old Carabinieri from the wonderful sounding village of Fabroso Sotana. You don't even have to speak Italian to love the sound of it.
Great turnover. Let's see if he's efficient with that stride.
And gets a little mid-corner 0 skin, avoids the wall though. 5-10 start, not bad at all. You know, you're starting outside the top 20, but you're not racing anybody else. You're only racing the ice. So he gets the 13th fastest start. He's 13th as he gets onto the sled.
Yeah, and with these conditions, it's fair. You can see there might be a little bit of frost buildup, but compared to how Winterberg, what it potentially can be like with the snow, the rain, the frost, these are awesome conditions.
Unfortunately, he's not able to keep the speed on board. He's ebbed out of the top 20, 23rd at the moment. And we talked about this in the women's race. It is doubly hard when you're trying to learn this sport. You get 6 runs in training, you get a 7th run, and then if you get a second heat, you get an 8th run. You know, that's another 15% more experience just from making the second heat. And if you don't get it, then you're losing out additionally to those that do get into the second heat, and you're trying to catch up as it is. Well, uncomfortable slide in terms of the time. But again, you know, hard to see really major disasters. That, again, the late exit is probably the worst of the lot.
Yeah, just creating some pressures, and when you drop out of corners like that, it's just slowing you down, especially his form tail sled.
Well, next up, returning to the World Cup for the first time in a while, Anshay Shatina. Didn't go to the North American Tour last year and didn't go this year either. His father died last season rather unexpectedly, rather tragically, and so he's left running the family transport firm. So he is now really more of a part-time slider and a full-time businessman. 5:23 getaway. Well, he's definitely more than capable of top 20 finishes, but again, you know, probably hasn't had a lot of pre-season and feeling fairly rusty, I'm sure.
You can see the Winterberg track. There's a lot of uphill sections, and the camera views will show that. Usually we're seeing something like this. You're coming out of corners and it's still going down, but you'll see a lot of uphill portions, which makes it so it's very, very technical, and the speed doesn't catch up with you until you're going through corner 10 right here.
Well, now he's starting to bring some speed from 22nd to 21st, 1:26.6. He might just make 20th. Oh, very close indeed. 200ths away from making the second heat. 57.78 under Marambel on a 57.76. Can breathe for another minute. You see the Latvian coach is helping out. He's one of the Seeker development athletes.
Nächster am Start die Nummer 27 aus Griechenland, Alexander Stefanos.
Again, you know, bit of a smile, but what he needs is time on the ice, and life is just conspiring a little bit against him. You know, you can't fault him for exuberance and love of speed. He took this up under persuasion from his dad to stop him going motorcycle racing. His dad figured this was a safer pursuit, and he wasn't far wrong.
No, I would agree with his past dad.
Next up, Alexandros Kafalas of Greece, born and bred in Switzerland, but Greek father, so Swiss team's rather tougher to start up than a Greek team. And making his full season World Cup debut this year.
Ooh, and he's having a hard time with that corner 0, and with that 5:26, it's going to be catch up from here. we're talking about the uphill portions. Look at the camera angles. You can actually see, like, you're coming, the slider's coming uphill towards us right now, not downhill, which you'll see in the lower portion of the track.
Yeah, there's a couple of places where you think, well, that looks like it's coming up, and here in Winterberg, you're absolutely right. 26 at the start, 26th place still. So Lissy has some mercurial bottom end. This is not going to see him into the second heat. Ooh, and again, just a little wrong on the timing there in the exit.
You can see his elbows stick out every now and again. He's obviously pulling on his saddle and the handles to try and steer. Those are big steers, which are very unnecessary for this track.
Again, athletes that are coming up through the sport, lack of experience, lack of polish, as with anything else, you know, lack of polish, lack of finesse, and so yeah, the inputs are bigger, and often because they're just a fraction later than they would ideally be, and so you have to do more steering later to get you round.
Has that apricot orange type visor to help him be able to see through the white of the ice.
Again, like Anse Shatina, he's one of the young athletes in the Seeker development program. See, just on the woodwork there, lots and lots of marks. That's from the bobsleds that were here a couple of weeks ago. 60 crashes in the Europa Cup bobsleigh week. 60. Yikes.
Must have added another corner or something.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd be crashing that much in Winterberg.
Lots of young drivers. Well, next up, Lucas Kummer, 28th of our 29 sliders. Now, if you're starting in 5.2 something, you're in trouble. He should be down almost into single digits. 5.04, that is a big effort, and he knows he needs it as well, and could have done without that.
Could actually hear that on our camera, that big hit going into corner one, and just pushed him away. With this being an uphill portion of the track, he cannot have that type of mistake.
Okay, so here's the progress. 6th as he loaded, 11th coming uphill out of corner 4. He'll be, what, 15th here? He is 15th here. That's what it's done to his speed. Could still make the race. Ooh, little flop there, and again, the microphone's picking that up very clearly. Very close, Mel, 17th, hits off 9.
Not being a very big guy, his weight isn't going to be helping him coming in this lower portion.
16th, 125.8. Oh, so much went away in the last corner. He only just makes the race. 57.66. Well, there you saw one of Mickey Grunberger's 2 hats there as the Swiss coach celebrating getting his athlete into the race, but it bumps Ander Mirambel, who he coaches as an independent coach, one of the younger independent sliders. So another of the Seeker development drivers gets himself into the race.
Giving props to his sponsor, that support. If you don't have the support, you're not going to advance. You can see he's just drifting to that right wall, and he bumps the corner right there. You can see the snow fly, huge direction change. Can't be doing that anywhere on this track, really, but the top portion. Here's this classic little bit of a flip out at corner 14. Lots of air between the runners and the ice.
Yep. By that time, he's across the line and into the race. On the bubble now is Johnny Fairbairn of Canada. Again, returning to the World Cup, Silvio Messerosi didn't race in North America, so he's been racing in Europe. Again, budgetary reasons like the Romanian girls.
He doesn't have gloves on. I've never seen that before. Ever?
Wow. He's obviously warm enough. 5:25 getaway. Well, as you say, most of the athletes wear gloves. Do you think that's just a personal preference, or
no,
did he forget
I actually think it's a rule. I think it might be a rule. I don't know. That'd be something we'd have to check into.
Because, you know, the race suit comes down over the hand. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, 27th at the start, he has slipped to 28th place. So this is not looking like he's going to get a second heat anyway. It might be a slightly moot point for the jury, but rules are rules. If you do have to have them and he doesn't, then he may well end up excluded rather than 28th. or 26th where he is now, so he is finding speed. 125.4 down the bottom, not too bad, got up to 24th place. But like Delia Ivas, his female compatriot didn't make the race. Maria Mazzolù did, she had a good World Cup opener. But Silvio Messerossi, 24th place, does not make it into the race. Ahead of Matthias Guggenberger, Alexandros Kefalas, ahead of Dave Swift, Giovanni Molisano, and last in the field, John Montgomery, the Olympic champion. The man who he beat to that gold medal 2 years ago in Whistler is the race leader, though. Martins Dukurs, like Shelley Rudman in a women's race, didn't break it, didn't inch past it, didn't shave a bit off it, drop-kicked it clear into the next postal district. Ripped half a second out of the track record to lead our first heat. So there are the standings. Dukurs by 1400s from Alexander Tretyakov, who was also inside the old mark. Kristen Bromley lies third. Tight battle for the podium, exactly as we saw in the women's race this morning, Melissa.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race here in Winterberg with these fair conditions for that second. Find out who's going to be up on that podium. Yeah,
we've cut 9 of our 20 starters. We've got a tie for 9th place, just at the bottom of the top 10. And again, lots of close battles. 100th, 200ths of a second, a tie for 12th. Johnny Fairbairn will be the last athlete who makes the cut, and 9 do not make it, including John Montgomery, his 3rd different sled in 3 weeks. All adds up to, well, it didn't make much difference because he could have had the start on any sled and he would never have been able to recover from it. He is 29th at the bottom of the pile. So that's the first of our 2 heats, round 4, the Wiesmann Men's Skeleton FIVT World Cup here in Winterberg in Germany. And Melissa Hollingsworth will join me for the second heat as well. Stay with us for all the action. Can Martins Dukurs get that big number 20 win? He certainly looks firmly on target, but in this sport, nothing is guaranteed.